As a physician, you experience years of making critical and life-changing decisions for your patients. How do you plan to transfer that mindset to your career as a politician?
Well, the reason why I'm going into politics in the first place is to make those life-changing decisions, because I think that unfortunately people who have been put in that position over the years have not done their job. It's simple as that. I, for years and years and years, have heard people talk about things like economic development in the inner cities, especially in the inner city of my city, Phoenix. And I've watched literally nothing been done. I mean, very little has been done ever. And so my whole goal is to change the way people think and then change the way they react to those thoughts. Because it's one thing to say you're going to do something, and I've heard lots of people say they're going to do certain things, but then they never come to fruition. And the reason is they get into Congress, they get paid off by lobbyists, they get nice vacations given to them and so forth, and they forget what they promised the people when they were back at home. Well, see, the beautiful thing about my life is I've achieved everything I've ever wanted to achieve in my life. Really, I have. Yeah. So this is about the people even more so now, because I don't have any ulterior motives. I don't want to be something more than just a congressman that enacts laws that help people. And the common person, as I call it, the people who have been neglected for years and years and years. And in my opinion, it's going to continue to be that way unless we get more people with my mindset in Congress.
Nice. And speaking of that, of politicians often getting distracted, I feel that's something communities often see every year, every month. How do you plan to keep your promise to District 3?
Well, I'm really going to keep my promise to God. I'm not going to, it's not even just to District 3, but I made a promise to my God years ago when I was a child that I was going to get in a position to help people. When I went to medical school, there were 4 black doctors in Maricopa County. And I came back to medical school at the University of Arizona. People don't really understand why I did that, because I was fortunate to get into all the other medical schools I applied to. But I came back to this one for one reason, because I knew there was only 4 African American doctors in Maricopa County, and I was convinced that I could make a difference to bring more African Americans in this city, in this county. Fast forward, we started a MedStart program. I was involved with starting the first one in the University of Arizona. Going from 1 black medical student in the whole state to, by the time I left the U of A, there were 9. By the time I started practicing, in 10 years, there were over 20 African. And I've helped recruit about 50 of them. Now there are over 300 in Maricopa County. So my goal was, as a kid, to do what I set out to do, and I've been able to achieve that. We got to get better. We still are very much, I shouldn't say misrepresented, but disproportionately represented in this country in medicine. So we're working on that. We're working on that still, but we got a long way to go. But I cannot see myself ever getting deviated or having a deviation from what I set out to do, because that's the only reason I'm doing it. I don't have any ulterior motives. Again, like I said, I don't want to be president one day. I don't want to be in the Senate, God forbid. I want to just do the work of the people. And my grandfather, the pastor Elmo Wooten, who I told you earlier had a church not far from where you sit, taught me that when I was a young kid. And I've lived by that since then. So there's nothing that's going to change me.
Yeah, that's amazing. We're going to jump topics here. So many politicians are aware of the homelessness crisis here in Arizona, and a lot of your candidates have this on their view as well. What's your game plan to solving the homeless crisis, and how might it differ from your opponent?
I just recently went to 5 different countries just to look at how they deal with the homeless crisis. And unfortunately, they really didn't have the homeless crisis we have. I'm gonna give you an example. I ended up in Singapore. Singapore is a small country. Singapore doesn't have 100th of GNP that we do in America, etc. I went for 4 days trying to find a homeless person. Had my driver driving all around. Of course, this was on my own dime, by the way. This is not politically. This is Dr. Wooten's vacation. And he finally looked at me and said, "Dr. Wooten, you see those high rises over there?" And I said, "Yeah, they look nice." He said, they would compete with the average mid-Manhattan high-rise. And I said, really? He said, yeah. He said, you know who owns them? And I said, who? The government. He said, they're government housing for our low-income people. I said, well, those high-rises are low-income housing? He said, yeah, you don't see wires hanging out the windows and dilapidated walls, do you? He said, because our government believes in taking care of the people. And what they do, they have a 30-year lease or a 45-year lease. After the end of that lease, they own it. They can then pass it down to their family. So it perpetuates itself, and family members stay off the streets and have a place to live. If we in America just put an iota of, I should put it like this, repurpose funds, take money away from certain groups like defense and put it into the people like they do. Because we have enough bombs to blow up the world about 30 times. And I don't think we need to blow it up one time. So if we just reappropriated money without increasing taxes, because everybody, oh, you're going to tax me more. No, we're not. The rich can stay rich. We're not going to tax you anymore. We're just going to move money around and have programs set up for people like that. And if you go around the city of Phoenix right now, you will see dozens of empty buildings. There are people who own those buildings. Do you think they wouldn't mind getting a huge tax break if they let those buildings be repurposed for homeless people and homeless living? Do you think they like paying taxes on an empty building? I know I wouldn't. You just have to have the mindset to think out of the box and make it happen, because the rest of the world thinks out of the box and makes it happen. For whatever reason, Americans, we don't want to do that. And I say the main reason is we're greedy. And the top 1/2 of 1% don't want to give up that power and that greed, and they don't care about their fellow American. I do. And I know there has to be people in Congress, some, that would share that philosophy. You just got to get somebody with a thought process like I've dealt with over the years that I've dealt with it and put it together and make it happen. It could easily happen. It could happen within weeks to months. Every time I leave this building, I run into 3, 4 people living on the street. And every time I see it, I get very, very sad. It's unacceptable to me. No one in America should be on the street eating trash, ever. But they are.
So financially, we're not doing as great either. You know, there's a lot of people, like we spoke earlier, they're trying to figure out how they're going to pay for this or that. But how do you plan on convincing those owners to, let's say, have it for a lower income?
Well, there are lots of ways to do it. If it's single-family housing, for instance, you could have people just like Habitat for Humanity does. You have people actually work to repurpose the buildings themselves in order to live in them. Mm-hmm. You got an active workforce that you don't even use because you slight them so much that they feel disenchanted. They don't want to do anything. They don't want to even get out and look for a job. Well, you can give them a job working in their own place. There are a lot of different ways to maximize the workforce and getting people to be able to have good housing. And the other thing is economic diversity. I mean, I don't know if you realize, but in the Congress right now, all the 8A programs, the programs that are set aside for minority, women-owned businesses are being gradually taken away. People are being elected with the pretense of, I'm going to get into Congress and I'm going to vote to get rid of these set-aside programs. And it's really shocking how many of them are under attack right now. That's a problem, because we have this mindset now that, oh, we don't need affirmative action anymore. We don't need any set-aside programs. Everybody can make it in this country if they just put their head down and make it, and that's unfortunately still just not true. You just have to sometimes force certain people to give people an equal break and a fair shake and a fair attempt to own a business, to run a business, etc. And so again, it's the mindset of the people that are getting in Congress that's really scary right now, because if things continue to go like they're going, there's going to be no real programs to help people that have been disenfranchised for a couple of 100 years, and we're going to slide backwards. And if we slide backwards, things are going to get even worse. It's going to get better for certain half of 1%, but I'm talking about the 99.5% of Americans. It's not going to get better for.
Towards the end of 2023, Representative Ruben Gallego made a statement revolving around the lack of housing vouchers provided to Phoenix. How would you further act on this to allow vouchers to be dispersed differently?
I would work to make them have them dispersed differently than what they are, just increase them. You know, and that comes from funding. And that, again, like I said earlier, comes from moving funds from one section to another section. Again, if we reuse the money that's out there and use it in a more appropriate way, those people who are so concerned about their taxes going up or being taxed more, they can relax. Because I'm not talking about increasing taxes for anyone. I believe in everybody paying their fair share of taxes. You know, how can you be a billion-dollar company and not pay taxes? I struggle every year to pay mine. How is that possible? Well, it's possible in this country because we allow it to be possible instead of just having a straight tax. You're going to pay this amount of your income, period, no matter who you are. See, that would fix all that too. But it goes back to getting in a think tank and really piecing it together and keeping the programs that are known to work. I'll give you another one. Head Start. I don't know why we argue about that every year, it seems. But Head Start is a program for children that we know works. It's been proven over and over again. But we got to fight to get it funded appropriately every year or every 2 years. That's a problem. Yeah. So it's just a matter of taking what you have and finessing it and making it more applicable to the problems that we have right now. But we got to continue vouchers. That's just the way it is.
As a politician and as a doctor, how can you get people of color to gain trust in medicine after seeing statistics say women and people of color are 30% more likely to be misdiagnosed?
Well, I actually give this talk in here daily. You just said it. Most African Americans and people of color have a serious distrust of health care. They think big pharma, they think that they drive up the cost of drugs just because of greed, and they're absolutely right. There's no reason in the world you should be paying $2,000, $3,000 a month for your medication. I don't care what the medication is. It is based on greed, and I've been saying this for 40 years, and I'll continue to say it. So we are going to work extremely hard with the government as it is to combat greed in medicine. But it's hard to convince, especially brown people, that we're on the right track, we're going to do what's right for them, because the history says that you're not. We can go back to just the history, experimenting on African Americans with syphilis. You know, everybody brings that up, but it's a thought. I still, in my practice, hear that on a monthly basis from somebody. All I can say is, when you look at somebody who looks like you and has a passion to take care of you, you're more likely to trust them. And I tell you this, there's one statistic that you need to know. American people, we rank number 32 to 34, depending on what study you look at, for infant and child mortality. And usually the way you rate a country is that statistic, infant and child mortality, how well they're doing by their people. We're number 32 to 34 in the world. That means there's 31 countries better than us. And we're supposed to be the greatest country in the world, right? But if you're an African American and you were a country, you'd rank number 60. There'd be 59 other countries better than you as far as your health care is concerned with regards to infant and child mortality. Well, watch this. If you're an African American taken care of by an African American doctor, you would only rank number 15. There'd only be 14 countries better than you. So why do African Americans do better with African American doctors? You have to ask yourself that question, why? You know why? Because I can tell you story after story of young women who are in their 7th, 8th month of pregnancy go to the hospital thinking that they may be in labor, getting pushed out the door. Oh, you're not in labor. Come back and end up precipitously delivering the baby at home or in the stairwell. It happens all the time because we know that unfortunately there's a different mindset with unfortunately certain people, especially physicians and healthcare providers, when they look and deal with people of color. They have a different mindset. And it's proven that they miss things a lot more readily than African American doctors and nurses do because we're tuned into it. So why do I have a push to get more and more African Americans into medicine? Well, I think I just answered that question.
Mm-hmm. And then outside of getting more African Americans into medicine, how do you plan to improve this issue on a scale of, let's say, being able to afford like your medicine or like just Medicare in general?
That's a great question. Universal health care. We're the only country in the world that doesn't really have it. You should be able to get any health care you need in this country and not even think about what you have to pay for it. You should be able to come through this door, come to this window, and not the first question you're asked is not what health plan do you have, but your name. How you doing, young lady? What's your name? What can I do for you? Now, what health plan do you have? That's what most people get asked when they go to the doctor. I am an advocate, a staunch advocate of universal health care. I was a big-time advocate of the Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. That's why Barack Obama came here and met with me, and I ended up going to Washington because I was very outspoken about that from Jump Street. Universal health care. You should not be denied health care because you can't afford it, or you don't have the insurance that'll cover this, or you need this procedure, but you got to wait 9 months before a group in the panel decide whether you should get it or not. That's unacceptable to me. So as you know, the number one thing on my platform, I call it a plank, a thick plank, is to make sure everybody gets the health care they deserve, irregardless. You should not have to go bankrupt to get your medicine. And a lot of people, a lot of elderly people in particular, got to decide if they're going to eat, buy groceries, pay the rent, or get their medicine. It's unacceptable to me. So I'm a real staunch advocate for universal health care. Yeah, it may mean some physicians make a little less money over time, and it may mean some physicians may make a little bit more, especially those of us who deliver free health care when we have to. And I'll just tell you, I don't normally tell people this, but over my 40 years, about 28% of all the health care that I deliver out of this office, I do for free. Not state access, not Medicaid, free. And that's one of the gifts that God has given me, to be able to do that. I struggle at times. Sometimes I can't pay the rent hardly, but I'm okay with that because I know people walk out that door taken care of. And that's all I care about.
Yeah, that's amazing. So obviously this goal of yours might have some pushback from, let's say, other politicians or maybe other physicians. How do you plan on convincing them on the financial scale, like, yes, we can afford this, or just letting them know, like, it needs to be done?
Physicians know the amount of wastage that's out there, the amount of greed that's out there, the amount of paying CEOs of major health plans $50 million bonuses because they achieve the numbers that they want to achieve for their stockholders. See, whenever you privatize medicine, you're going to have this issue. And we're privatized. We want everybody to just go out there and do the best you can. And if you make more money than the other guy, who cares? That's capitalism at its best. Now, healthcare is one area that should not be like that. It should be everybody gets whatever they need. I've had major arguments with people who say healthcare is a privilege, not a right. And I just can't believe they say that. But they really mean that. So they feel like if you don't have the means and you have an illness, it's too bad. I can't wrap my head around that. It's something called a Hippocratic Oath that's on my wall, right? It says you're going to do what you need to do to take care of people. And all I will do is focus that on the physicians and those legislators that have a half a brain, which I'll admit has been hard to find recently, and make them understand. what kind of commitment should you have towards your people? See, if we get rid of that privatization of healthcare, that you make as much money as you can for your stockholders and so forth, we're going to give them big time dividends. And hey, how about just taking care of people? Have a scale of what different levels of physicians get based on their training and what they do. Just a general, there would be no broke physicians in this country. They do well, and people would get taken care of.
One of the things that ties in, I feel, all of your goals would be food, like such as how in underrepresented communities that are living in low-income communities, they often don't have access to healthier food, or they just can't go and get it, or things of that sort, and then it impacts their health as well. How do you plan on improving that?
These food deserts, you know, if you go south of where you're sitting now, it is one of the largest areas of any municipality that has the most food deserts. Lack of adequate grocery stores and groceries and so forth. Well, that's on the top of my hit list. We're going to do something about that because, you know, you got to talk to the Sprouts of the world and so forth. Why, you know, Whole Foods, why are you neglecting large swaths of the population? I would be the person they're going to have to answer that to. And understand, even right now, about 30%, 32% of children in Maricopa County is estimated to go to sleep, to go to bed every night hungry. You know, I say more. That is just deplorable. And it's the same way around the country. So can we sit back and be comfortable with the fact that there's still families with children who are hungry every day? Really? In the most bountiful country in the world? We waste more food than it would take to feed those people. So you got to come up with programs that will focus on knocking out food deserts, having affordable foods, especially things like vegetables, fruits, and so forth that are healthy, and really make that an emphasis in any platform, but in any government program. And it's been started. You know, there are people that are out there doing it, but they just need more funding and more help. So we're going to do that.